Ladies and now we can get the party started. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get this party started. Everyone is going to start rolling in. Super excited. Phil's got a super cool background. I need to step up my background game. Um, are we, can you guys see me? Give me a yes in the comments if you can see me. So right now I am not seeing, all right, I'm seeing here we go. Love it. They are rolling in.
And
What's up,
just on the
everybody?
chat, Ryan, as well, so everybody can see it when they're in the chat, is turn it from just hosts and panelists to everyone because we're seeing the chat.
Ah, oh
It's
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
little
Change it to
blue bar there,
everyone.
everyone, and
That's
then we
a
can all be like, "Ha, everyone."
all right, cool. I love it. You said something actually really profound last time, which was I said let's give everyone a couple minutes, and you said let's respect the people that were on time. And so let's get this party started. I love that. I think too many times we lean into the masses and majorities of give everyone a little bit of grace. But let's get this party started. First off, I am so excited. Round two. Okay. Uh, you absolutely crushed it. I know this was it's a fellow Phil, a Philo, I guess we'll roll with a group
Gotcha.
effort. Yeah, a little mashup. But I mean, I just, the young team was on and I just can't tell you how positive they said. And we had so many people that just like the feedback was incredible. So I'm super excited to welcome everyone. I do have a question. I see some people already commenting where they're coming in from. I would love to know if you were on the last call. Okay. So if you were on the last call, I love it. We got the Brook group here. They won the 30 DLC last time. So love to see them. Yes, 10 out of 10. Throw a yes in if you were on the last call. What's up, Will? The man, the myth, the legend. Because I think it's extremely important. I want to make sure that we bridge the first call that we are, or the first webinar that we did over to to today and ultimately making sure that it looks like we've got a bunch of people that were already on the first one and so they must have been getting value. I'm going to run through a couple slides and then we're going to kick this off. We've got some amazing content to share today. Obviously, I want to make sure that uh, everyone acknowledges, first off, I mean, Phil's investing so much time into this. This is a three-part series. We're going to focus on saying the right thing to the right person. Something we're super passionate about at Fellow is right message to the right person at the right time. And, that's kind of a marketing concept that we really focus on. But you got to say the right thing to the right person at the right time as well. And so we're going to kind of talk more about what that looks like. I'm going old school. We're going to scroll down here. Make sure you give us a scan. Phil on social, on Instagram, his content is really strong. Go ahead, give us a scan. Make sure you give us a follow. Last webinar, we had so many people reposting and posting stories. We'll talk more about why that's really important because one of the things that everyone loves are these role play cards. The young team has them, even Fellow, our team, our sales team has them. And we're going to be giving away a bunch of role play cards, which people just go crazy over. All you got to do is just post something on social, comment, tag, use hashtag fellow, tag Phil. Make sure that you essentially are talking about things you're learning, the value you're getting. That kind of stuff really fuels people like myself and Phil. And then let me just see. Here we go. Lastly, make sure you save the date, October 28th, 1 p.m. So we're going back to the afternoon on the Eastern time zone. And we're going to actually have a lot of fun about bringing, on the first call, there was a lot of people that were throwing out a bunch of different scenarios. We're going to focus on kind of the frameworks Phil taught us in session one. We're going to start to move those into, I'd say, practical and tactical scenarios now. And then we're actually going to start bringing people up to talk through scenarios that they're potentially struggling with or real-time scenarios that they want help that we can kind of coach them through. So make sure you save it in your calendar. If you're already registered, you will be automatically registered for number three, but that is Tuesday, October 28th at 1 p.m. And lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about Fellow, but mostly we're going to focus on what to say to the right person. We're going to talk about how Fellow actually creates some engagement so that you can ultimately know who you should be talking to and providing you with some data. If you want to check it out, give a QR code to scan. But let's get on to the meat and potatoes of this. Phil, welcome, my friend.
Hey Ryan, what a delight to be here. This is exciting for me. It's my last day in this office. We moved this afternoon. So I'm keeping everything set up here. It's going to be the final webinar from this location is me and you right now.
Well, I am honored that this is the last one, and it hopefully will be one of the first ones in the new office as well. We have so many people that reached out and just talked about how brilliant they felt the first session was and how much value that you provided to them. My biggest takeaway was, I have a page full of notes. Something that I really thought was profound was. Uh, the most interesting word is interesting.
Interesting.
Interesting. And I think it's so funny as you kind of engaged with the audience and you were talking about what do you say when someone says, "How's the market?" And everyone started saying crazy, wild, amazing. And all of a sudden, when you think about who wants to, crazy creates chaos. Wild is chaotic. Who wants chaos in their life? And the power of the word interesting to me, and I've started to already find myself using that word significantly more in the past 2 weeks, just in my dialogue in general. And so I really enjoyed that. The other thing I really enjoyed and I thought was not only interesting, but really helpful was the framework you laid out. And I think before we jump into some different scenarios, getting a little bit more tactical in everyone's business, I'd love for you to revisit the conversation framework because I know that created a significant amount of engagement in the comments
Mhm.
about like all these, it's starting to get the wheels turning. And I think the best way for us to bridge the first session into where we're going today is just running through a high level revisiting that framework for the people that were on but also for the people that weren't, and then we can start to move it over into actual dialogue in certain scenarios, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think the puzzle that we're trying to solve en masse, or certainly the echo that hit me from the last session is people want to have conversations. People are actually pretty good when they're in the middle of some of these conversations. Where they struggle is how to start them and how to start them with some context so they can set things up in a way that create problems worth solving. I love that Mark is here in the chat saying, I've heard some people refer to the market as unbelievable. It's highly unlikely that that word is going to provide any support for the future conversation that you have. What you're saying is
100%.
it's based on mistruths. If it's unbelievable, I can't believe it, therefore I can't trust it, therefore I probably shouldn't. And I want us to realize how much what we say is either helping or hurting. Nothing is neutral. Let me repeat, everything that you say is helping or hurting. Nothing is neutral. And if it is neutral, it's a waste. So you're either building your argument, subtracting from your argument. You're either multiplying your chance of success or you're dividing from the opportunity of where you can come from. The framework that we talked about is something we lift from the book, Exactly What to Say for Real Estate Agents, how we teach at a deeper level inside of our certification programs. And I'm hoping people saw my screen just splitting in half. And you can change the world with OFQ. What is OFQ? It stands for opening fact question. Now, this is the simplest of frameworks to allow you to start any conversation with any person at any time and gain permission in the process. How do people typically start phone calls or typically start conversations? They start conversations with words like, is now a good time to talk? Have you got a minute? Now, these are terrible ways to start a conversation in 2025. There was a time they were great, which was like 1986. Every point prior to caller ID, asking for permission whether somebody had the time for the conversation was a courtesy. Now, if people don't have time to have a conversation, they're not in the conversation. Johnny says here in the chat, am I catching you at a bad time? It's not helping. Like it tricks somebody saying into no, but what they do is they feel like this is not a good news conversation. They feel like this is a low rent conversation. You set the standard for the conversation is not important. Instead, we can build a more important frame. We're looking for a polite opening. Could be, hi, Ryan. It's pretty polite. Let's not overthink it. The fact needs to be mutually agreeable. By mutually agreeable, it ticks a box inside the mind of the other person that says, yeah, that's right. Not you're right. That's right. Instant fast pass to yes, that's agreed. Like, look, what would happen is if I'm calling Claire on my team, I could be, hey, morning, Claire, mutually agreeable fact. It's like, it's your birthday today, right? You see how that's mutually agreeable fact? She knows and I know that it's her birthday. Now we got into a conversation with a frame. But if that was a pass-based client, it could be like, hey, Ryan, I know we spoke a couple of months back about the thoughts that you may be looking to potentially have a move in the spring. Is that still correct, or has your timeline changed? See, the question has to be easy to answer. People write hard to answer questions all the time because they're easy to ask. An example of a hard to answer question that is easy to ask is one that everybody on this call has deployed more than a dozen times in their lifetime, even they know that it gets bad results. And the question that many of you ask on repeat that is an easy to ask, hard to answer question is, what do you want for dinner? You see how easy it is to ask, but actually how hard it is to answer. An easy to answer question in that same example would be, what did you have for lunch? Now that gets me a long way closer to what we might want for dinner. But if I said, Ryan, what did you have for lunch? You're like, got it.
I'm just curious, real quick, why do we do that? Why do we, because, I do it all. What do you want for dinner? It's like one of those things that it's so habitual.
We ask the question we want the answer to, as opposed to how to get there. And this is why we love clickbait online. This is why lead gen is so helpful, because what it does is it gets inside the psychology of us knowing what the other person wants. So what they do is they think they hit the easy button. Now, I give another example. 6-year-old child in your life crying, tears running down their face. They're clearly upset. What is a question many adults ask of them with a goal to try and help them at that given moment in time?
What's wrong?
Right. That's what you want to know the answer to. Now, if the kid knew what was wrong, they wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't be struggling with a deregulated nervous system at this period of time where they are overly anxiously trying to process the scenario so that tears are straying down their face. Adult says what's wrong. Kid's like, I don't know. That's why I'm crying. You're not helping. You want to help, but you're not asking for help in the right way. If you asked a past-based question and you ask what happened, like Johnny's here in the chat, are you okay? No, they're crying, Johnny. If they were okay, they wouldn't be crying. Look, May is trying to fix it. What would make you happy at this moment? Like, this is the problem with humanity. What we're trying to do is jump straight to solve. So what we do is we ask big questions, like what is motivating you to try and sell right now? Or what is motivating the move? Like what are you looking for in an agent? We're trying to cover too much ground in one question. In the kid scenario, look how much easier it becomes. Kids crying, you ask, what happened? When they share the answer to what happened, you find out if they're okay, what's wrong, how you can help. But the question we should be asking is rarely the first question we think of. We should find side door. And after you've set up a frame with OFQ, your question and arc should be slowed down, because if you slow the process down, you speed the outcome up. In the medical industry, they say prescription before diagnosis is malpractice. Like, it beats me why you folks continually offer unsolicited CMAs. Nobody freaking asked for it. It's like sending a beautiful picture of yourself and then chasing it saying, what do you think of how good looking I am? What you're better to do is to wait till somebody invites it. But don't wait till somebody invites it. Create a moment that has something of that nature being helpful. So what you do after opening fact question is you then build from here with a past question, a present question, and a future question, or a series of all of these, but they're going in order. If you were contacting a client that you sold a house to in 2022, you'd be like, hi, Ryan. Mutually agreeable fact is I can't believe it's like almost 4 years since we were sat at that closing table in that weird attorney's office, and we finally got you the keys to your new place. Are you still living in the house? They're like, yeah, we're here. They're like, how's it been for you over the last 3 and a bit years? Past. Okay. And how's it serving you now that the kids are a little bit older, and like what's happening in the current situation? Okay. And how much longer do you see yourself staying there? Then all you do is you make an offer. Look how you can make an offer. Would it help if? Not, I'm going to produce a competitive market analysis report, I'm going to send it to you, and then I'm going to chase you like a stalker. Is, would it help if you had an accurate understanding of what a house like yours might be worth in a market like this? Try and say no to that. So you then ask another question, which is, when would be a good time? In this scenario, when would be a good time for us to reconnect and find out what you learn from the data we provide? And Andrew's here in the chat saying, like, if you don't have a background with a lead, what's a good, easy question? Well, what could the background on the lead be? It could be like, hi, Ryan. Mutually agreeable fact could be, look, I could see you're on our website recently looking for some information about what your home may be worth. Was that just for information, or are you thinking about trying to do something? Oh, got it. Where are you living right now? Past, present. Do you own it or are you renting? Okay, what kind of timeline are you looking to work to? Would it help if you understood like everything that's involved in the home selling process so you can adjust your timeline accordingly? And when would be good a time for us to have a next conversation so we can start to map out what that process would look like?
Such a simple framework, and it makes so much sense. And we overcomplicate it so much, you know.
Every song in the top 40 in the pop charts right now uses the same 3 chords in chord progression on repeat, near as damn it. Right? And what we think they are is all different songs. They're not. We just understand the psychology of what goes into the music that people like.
I'm curious on the example that you just gave from the OFQ example of I saw you were just looking on our site. Uh, what do you find when people naturally get defensive when they hear from a salesperson, right? What are ways to diffuse some of the defense that is brought? And maybe it's just a stigma because as salespeople, we talk to so many prospects.
Make it granular for me, Ryan. What's the scenario? Set the full context up.
Yep. All right. I'm searching for homes on your site. It's a forced registration opportunity. So the only way for me to look at homes is by inputting my information. I input my information. I get a phone call from you, right? I'm met with a little bit of like, I just started looking at homes and now I'm having a conversation with a salesperson and naturally I'm getting a little defensive around what my real motivations are because we don't have a relationship yet. How does that framework ultimately impact this kind of scenario?
The issue that exists in most lead follow-up approaches from sales professionals, real estate agents, etc., is they assume that the lead is a high intent lead. When almost certainly it wasn't. That's the mistake. Is what happened is this person flirted with the potential possible idea. Now, marketers are so freaking good at being able to capture data nowadays to be able to lead gen that what they're doing is they're actually creating a clever like side door entry into a conversation. And then they're presenting it to a real estate agent in some ways, being like, here's a lead, there's a buyer lead, is a seller lead. It could be, but it also might not be. So most lead gen, we hit friction because the assumption the person that's making the outreach is making is different to the assumption that the person that's presented their data delivered. So most contact forms that get completed are completed from what I call sort of like Merlot induced like house porn shopping. Like that's what they were doing. It's like they were sipping a glass of wine or something and browsing around online and they got down a little rabbit hole and something was like, oh, click this button for this purpose. And then you're like, okay. And then it auto populated your details because that's what like our computers now do. And you're like, fine, hit the button. Is it giving me my immediate answer? No, forget about it. I'm carrying on my internet search. Now you've got a lead. So when you jump into that lead conversation with like, hi, I'm your experienced real estate agent, all of your needs, I'm here for you. Like, what is your motivation? What is your timeline? How they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I just enjoyed half a bottle of Merlot last night, clicked some buttons I wasn't supposed to. Like that's the truth of most. So what we should do is we should just play a little softer using the information that we know for sure, because people can't argue with the truth. So we go, hi, Ryan. Mutually agreeable fact is you may not be expecting a call from me, but I can see from my information that you were on one of our websites last night, like looking for some information, maybe about your house or somebody else's house. Was it your house or somebody else's house that you were inquiring about? Oh no, it's mine. Okay. How long you been there? Okay. And what was it that prompted you to potentially think about looking for some information about its value? Okay. And is that because you're thinking of refi, selling, or are you just want it for your own memory bank? I mean, would it help if you had a more accurate number as opposed to a guesstimate? And like so when would be a good time for me to drop around and come take a look at the place? But
What I
instead
think
we
is really
have a
important
conflict
here,
of like, you filled in the form, and they're like, no, I didn't. I'm like, yes, you did. It's
what
like,
I think is really
this isn't going to
important
go
here is
far.
your offer is not so assertive. It's something of value versus something self-serving. Would it be helpful if I talked to you about how much I could sell your home for is a lot different than would it be helpful if I provided you something of value,
Hmm.
around having a more accurate, realistic value versus a guesstimate. Can you put a list I can't type fast enough. That's so funny. We'll get you all the content, Mark, not a problem. So question I think is really important, and this is where we were kind of going to shift the conversation we were chatting before the call. And Carol kind of hit it on the head is, how do you open the conversation without sounding creepy because you notice someone opened a fellow email or provided additional info, et cetera. And what she's really saying is, one of the things that Fellow is great at is injecting all of this data and information into your database, right? Which provides a lot of insights and signals that would imply that someone's getting ready to sell or that there might be some more motivation there based on their equity or how long they've lived in their home or they've made some large decisions that would imply that they're getting ready to list their home, and then it creates all this engagement, right? And me and you were kind of talking about this middle of like, there's a big difference in understanding from a funnel perspective, top of funnel engagement, middle of funnel engagement, and then bottom of funnel of someone actually raising their hand and saying, I want to sell my home. Can you help me? And I think one of the things that we've observed over the past maybe 5 years in our industry is there are companies that are now live transferring over what we would call bottom of funnel opportunities, which are people that want to have a conversation with an agent. And we're paying those companies, a 40% referral fee in order for them to work the opportunity from the top of funnel to middle of funnel to all the way down to the bottom. And it's really hard to make ends meet and have a healthy, profitable business when 40% is going right off the top. I know a lot of teams that do it, and it's a part of their model and it's part of their strategy, and I totally respect it. But I think one of the things that we're talking about is how do you create enough with Fellow creating all this automated engagement that creates all these hand raisers and people opening emails and stuff like that. How do you recommend we take those top of funnel and middle of funnel opportunities and stick with them long enough till
Hmm.
they're actually more motivated? Because one of the biggest pain points that I think I see in our industry, not just from a fellow perspective, but just being an agent, having a team, is a lot of times we're more motivated than the prospect is. And
Yep.
we want to move the prospect's timeline further down the funnel than they're actually prepared to. And there's a misalignment on ultimately what their real motivation is. How do you approach these type of top of funnel in the middle, hanging on to the customer or the prospect, I guess I should say, till they actually are ready to transact?
Okay. Well, there's a mindset shift for starters, and let's see if people can help me here in the chat. Just answer me in the chat. Is how many people do you have inside your CRM right now? How many clients or past clients do you have? What's that number?
Hmm.
Mara, it's like 33,500,
Big numbers right
100,000,
out of the gate.
250. Like these numbers are all over the place. What I do know
Yeah.
is everybody's number that ends in a zero, a 00, or a 00 is lying. I know that for sure. because it's a guess and we're not actually viewing the individuals. I love that like 50987 is a number, like some precise numbers here. I like that they're all over the page. But whatever your number was, if I'm Yoko and my number is 359, if I called those 359 people today and asked them a very simple question, which is, who is your real estate agent? How many of those 359 on impulse would say Yoko?
Right.
See, what we're doing is we're calling people our clients that aren't calling you their realtor.
Mm.
That is a problem. And solving that problem is the future of this entire industry. If you can solve that problem, you just built a giant moat around your business that says, I'm good. If you don't have active pipeline for 26, 27, 28, 29, you're missing what it means to be a pro in this industry at this given point in time. Everyone's playing in the 30, 60, 90-day sandbox. And all we're doing is we're feeding up to, like, what's that company that rhymes with pillow? Like their game of trying to hand you leads in the final mile, and they're nurturing the middle. We should be learning how to nurture the middle, providing value on repeat, so that those people are coming to you first. Those people are seeing you as the value generator, because what you don't have anymore, if you're good at this, is just information. What you have is insights. Now, insights are hyper valuable today. Information is being commoditized down to here. And what insights require is they require knowledge, not of your expertise, your area, your marketplace, the real estate. It requires knowledge of the other person's unique circumstances. Can't have insights without knowing what's happening in their work. We're looking to demonstrate empathy, which is hitting the show me that you know me button. So what does it mean? Is how do we have never-ending conversations with everybody inside of our database that are harvesting reasons to stay in touch? What are most people doing is we're showing up and throwing up with drips and like touch points everywhere. And we shouldn't be using a 2012 playbook in 2025. Like, I'm reading my email less today than I was yesterday. I'm trusting vidyards or CRM inputs or text messages less than I was yesterday, because I'm starting to make more assumptions that this wasn't a human-to-human connection. This was a technology-to-technology connection. Therefore, I don't have to treat it with the same level of respect. So what we're going to crave more than ever is imperfect service that is laced in heart. So how do we get to do that? Is we have to understand the mess. And the money in real estate right now is helping people organize the chaos. It is helping people make smarter decisions faster amongst that chaos. And it is helping realize that everybody believes that their circumstances are truly uniquely theirs. Which means if you don't have that intelligence, you're not that helpful. You best be the cheapest, the fastest, the sexiest, the most convenient, one of these other factors that would mean that people would choose you. But the game you can win is you just know more about us. There's a level of safety and security within that relationship piece. So how do you do it? Well, you go looking to be able to harvest insights in every conversation you have, not trying to drive action. You're trying to harvest insights. You're not trying to drive action. You're trying to harvest insights, not trying to drive action. So the action becomes predictable and honest. So what might be an example of an outreach you're looking to make? If you take your, let me get a number. If I'm Brian and I'm Brian Cowdery, I've got 1,939 people. I've got a lot of conversations to have. What's 1939 divided by 52?
What's that, like 20 some a week?
Yeah, 20 some a week, right? Call it 25 a week, take some time off. 5 a day. Then what Brian does is he goes to everybody in his database.
I went to culinary school, folks. It was a total guess. 37 is the right number.
Right. So let's call it 40 a week, take some weeks off. Let's call it 7, let's call it 8 a day. If you're doing 8 a day, Brian, could you make some form of outreach to everybody in your database of being like, hey, it's Brian. Some form of fact that is about how that person found themselves in your database in the first place. And then some form of confirmational question. Now, it could be that somebody is on your database because you met them at an open house. You go, hey, Ryan, it's Phil calling. You probably don't remember me, but I was the real estate agent that we spent a short time connecting with at an open house back at 123 Main Street in 2023. Did you guys ever end up buying a house? Okay, where are you living right now?
Hmm.
And what's your current situation? Okay, and then how much longer do you see yourself staying there? Gotcha. Now, I don't know if this is for you, but would it help if we provided you some further insights around the neighborhood you might want to move to next, so that you could at least see how houses are progressing? And would it help if once a year we just dropped in and gave you an understanding of what a house like yours might be worth based on market conditions? Yeah, I guess that would help. And when would be a good time for us to have our annual review to find out how your plans have changed? Put in, schedule, done, repeat. Just do 8 of those a day. Now what you've got is insights back on the 2,000 people on your list. And what you can now do is you're just scheduling all of your next action. We're not like following up. Like if you're making calls being like, hi, and you're like, hi, and they're like, yeah, I'm just checking in, seeing if there's anything we can do to help. And you know that if your needs change at any point, I'm here for you. And whether you're looking to buy, sell, or invest, like I got you. So for all of your real estate needs, and remember, the greatest compliment you can give me is, I mean,
Perfect.
come on, people. I want to throw up in my mouth. We're better than that. But like collect real information.
What I think is so important is if you guys are probably thinking through this as well, it's like, well, that's a very simple conversation, but does that actually move the needle to actually generating business? And I think to what Phil is saying is if you have Brian 1987 or whatever it is, and if you have 8 conversations a day, you're building your pipeline for 26, 27, 28, 29, etc. If you are going into this with the expectations of every conversation I'm going to have, I need that to turn into revenue now, you are going to be really disappointed, and that's the biggest, I would say. I think that's the first that you said was the first thing you need to do is recalibrate your expectations.
Yep.
What we are actually going into these conversations to do is build call it a generational, a career type of pipeline that continues to provide dividends for you year over year. And as you continue to build your bottom of funnel business of people that you're meeting at open houses that are ready to transact now, that need your help now, but you still are building the rest of the pipeline every day. One of the things that I'm so proud of the young team is, on average, we sell about 500 homes. We have 15 agents, and people normally think that's a very high productive type of per agent type of business, which we're really proud of. We have the incredible agents. But what happens is those agents year over year, their business grows because of the things they were doing 3 years ago are now
Mm-hmm.
bearing fruit in 25. And
Yep.
we have agents that 5 years later are still, creating opportunities from conversations that they had 3, 4 years ago. And so I just think it's so important that it's like that framework sounds so simple. All right. But you got to remember, you're not having these type of conversations. Not every single one of those conversations is turning into a listing appointment or a buyer presentation tomorrow. What these conversations are doing is opening up discovery for you to understand what is their true motivation, what is their true desires, what is their true timetable or pain points, and then you can build a long-term plan and relationship with them. So I think it's really important to level set expectations when you're having these conversations, because if you are all fired up, it's the West Coast, it's 7:35 in the morning, and you're like, I'm going to go call 8 people in my database today. And you have these 8 conversations and no one's ready to actually transact today. I don't want you to be disappointed and say, well, I'm not wasting my time doing this every day. This is exactly the point of why we do this, to build this long-term generational pipeline.
Yeah. And if you're only playing in bottom of funnel opportunities, expect price-based conversations. Expect having to defend your fees. Expect
Yeah.
having to wrestle for why you as opposed to the other people. Like you best be the cheapest, the quickest, have the best reputation, have the most reviews. You best have some like massive defensible difference. The easiest way to win a 3-horse race is to don't let the other 2 horses race. Don't try to be faster, just be better and start the race before other people have started playing. And I'm going to look at some of the comments in a second, but also there's a mindset shift here. Is your business is remarkably similar to another industry that I've spent a lot of time serving through the years. And that business is the wedding dress retail business, right? You saw that one coming? Like real estate is almost identical to wedding dress retail. Let's look at it. If you owned a wedding dress retail business, when would you celebrate the success of the transaction?
After you sell them a wedding dress, they get married.
Yeah, she says yes to the dress, you cha-ching the credit card, today was a great day.
And
Was that the most important
time.
day to the consumer?
No.
The my life, like nervous, anxious, etc. Like we do this in the real estate process as we drive everything towards the closing table. Most of us on this call have been at a closing table, have had a day where we closed, a day that we moved in. Was that a happy, joyful day? Or was it actually nervy, anxious, like busy, full of stuff? Like, I don't think people remember their closing day as like, that was one of the happiest days of my life because it was anxiety induced, right? And we show up and be like, here's a chopping board, right? They move in and then all we do is we follow up. And then the only thing we sound like that we care about is when are they ready to sell or who else can they introduce us to? And Johnny's here like the wedding day is the most important day. It isn't. If you study that industry with any great depth, and anybody here on this call that's worn a wedding dress will probably testify towards this too, is where the value is questioned on that purchase isn't actually the wedding day. It's a moment that comes long after that, is that when she gets to see herself in the dress. In the photographs, that is the point of confirmation, validation of did I make the right choice? In the moment crystallized in time in a photograph that keeps getting repeated and visited back on. What happens to your real estate customer experience if you shift the finish line to it delivering upon its promise of the reason why they actually bought the house, and you start to care about that? You start to run that as predictable moments that you're caring for. The reason they bought the house was that when the kids were getting big enough that they could split out and have their own rooms and start to be able to still enjoy and grow as a family. Who's checking on that? Instead, we're celebrating the closing table. Oh, because what they wanted to do was to renovate the backyard so that what they could do is not have to go on vacation to be on vacation. They could create collective family moments in the backyard through the summer and have their friends, family members, and community come to them. That's why they bought the house. Who's checking in on that? Instead, we're saying CMA. Like many of you are delivering CMAs to clients that are wrong because you don't know enough. I get a CMA from a realtor every year, and I get the same similar CMA from my lender every year for my apartment in Manhattan. And what neither of those two people know is I also purchased the apartment next door, and I converted it. And I put a fairly significant renovation into the conversion of 2 apartments. So my square footage has doubled, but they're telling me that like I'm 8% up on value versus the price that I paid for half of a home. I'm like, you're useless. And actually our value is being more human. So I'm looking for moments of where I can get involved. And I'm going to keep pushing this framework is it doesn't matter the scenario. People are here saying things like, how does that OFQ change on the second, third, fourth, etc. call? It doesn't. Johnny's got it here. Like what if it's call number 4? It's like, hey, Johnny, it's Phil calling. Last time we spoke, that what you mentioned was blank, blank, and blank. Is that still a concern to you, or has anything changed? Oh, gotcha. What's happened since? Okay. And where are you at right now? Okay. And where are you thinking about maybe going from here? Gotcha. Would it help if? Okay, so when would be a good time for us to chat again? Hey, Johnny, 6 months ago, you said it'd be a good time for us to call back in October. Is this timing still right for you, or is something else different at your end? Oh, timing's good. Gotcha. Well, what's happened over the last 6 months? Okay, so where are you at right now? Where do we go from here? It runs and runs and runs. Like you're trying to make it too clever.
So this is, once again, it's so simple, but so good. It's amazing how we overcomplicate this. One of the things that you and I were talking about before the call is, Fellow provides all this data and visibility into our database that we never knew was there. For example, you meet someone in an open house and they go into your CRM or a buyer lead, and all of a sudden Fellow finds their address. It shows you that they've lived in their home for 7 years, that their home is appreciated by more than 25%. All these like little nuggets of like they have a 4% interest rate, all these little nuggets of information. How do you, if you do, how do you leverage that type of information? Now, they don't know that we know that information. How do you leverage that to ultimately become more intentional with the conversations that you have? And maybe kind of cherry pick, I would say higher, because we provide a propensity score that would show the people that are most likely to sell based off of
Yeah.
their engagement and behaviors. How do you leverage that type of stuff?
Well, you just go here, right? So say, for example, you found out you met them at an open house. They've been in the house 7 years. It's got a solid amount of equity. It's grown and it's appreciated at this period of time. And let's assume their name is Ryan. I'm going to say, hi, Ryan. You might not remember me, but my name's Phil. I'm the real estate agent that we met at an open house. And I'm pretty sure you've been to a few open houses through the years, right? That's my question. They're like, yeah. Now, I understand that you're living at 123 Main Street. Are you still living at that house? Yeah, we're still there. Okay. And you own that place, or do you rent it? Oh no, we own it. And how much longer do you see yourself staying there? You see, I'm not trying to sell anything.
Right. And
But
even though essentially that they own it, once again, we can identify that they own it, how long they've owned it for. You can
we open that
essentially
on paper. They might have moved out. They could have a sublease in there. They could
got
be on a tour to Bahrain with their employer, and at this moment in time, the house is unoccupied. There's all these maybes that could exist just because the data record says they
got
continue to
it.
be the owner of that property. I'm not jumping to any conclusions. I could be 99.7% certain, but not 100.
Got
And
it.
see right here, look, it's on my shirt. Curiosity is the fuel to great conversation. Like I'm going to know nothing for sure. If I show up knowing something for sure that is not mutually agreeable, expect conflict.
Yeah.
Like if I show up and say, look, you've been in your house 7 years, and from what my data is telling me is that your house has appreciated a significant value. You've got a huge amount of equity in it. Like what is your timeline to think about selling and realizing that equity? It could be a good time for you to upsize, downsize, etc. It's like, shut up.
Right.
It's a miss. But like when they tell me they're there, I'm like, I've got to think about what would help look like. And this is a big idea here. Like, don't undercook this. What does help look like? Has anybody here ever been in a situation where they've been hurting? They've been struggling with grief, like that you lost somebody or you've gone through a significant relationship change and you're in trouble, like you're on the back foot, you're not thriving. And in moments like that, people in your circle show up and say things like, look, if there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. Is that actually helpful or harmful? It's rarely helpful. If you have to diagnose what help looks like to somebody else, you are not a help.
Right.
You need to know what help looks like. So we need to go into these conversations understanding what help might look like. Now, if somebody has been on the market or somebody has been in their home 7 years, it's appreciated. They're giving indication that they might be looking to sell. They've been at open houses in the past. What is this question mark? What could possibly be helpful? A CMA might be helpful, but they'll need a qualifying question first. When was the last time? Like, when was the last time you got an accurate understanding of what a house like yours might be worth in a market like this? Oh, we haven't. Okay. So would it help if you at least had that information so you can make more informed decisions about where you might want to go from here?
And
Hey,
so
when was the last time you saw something
tie
online you might think about moving to next?
tie that to your scenario with your place in New York, right? I'm your past, agent, or I just have you in my database through a connection. How do I, what would be a great question to identify if you've purchased that next,
Just look how easy
adjacent
it would be
apartment?
if either the lender, the lender's assistant, the real estate agent, the real estate agent's assistant, if anybody actually had a meaningful conversation with me, they'd have said, "Hey, Phil, I know that you bought apartment XYZ back in 2021. Um, how are you enjoying New York?" Well, as it happens, we're like kind of enjoying it, etc. We were happy being in the city, but we've grown our footprint a little, and life's changed with the kids going into school, etc. Okay, so what's been going on? Well, since we bought it, we bought the one next door. We converted. We also created a place upstate. We sold a house in the UK, and the kids went to school in the city, but we've now moved them to a school in the Berkshires. Oh, gotcha. So what does that mean for right now? Well, we're using the apartment in the city for fun, and we don't know what our plans are for long term. I mean, we put a lot of money into it. We're holding a lot of equity in it. It doesn't cost us a lot of money to keep it because we've only got a tiny little mortgage with a low interest rate on it. Okay, so where do you go from here? Oh, no freaking idea. Okay. I mean, when was the last time that you got like an understanding of what it might be worth given everything you've done to it? I haven't. Well, would it help if you knew what somebody might realistically pay for it today? Just to help you in terms of whether you do keep it or not? I guess there'd be no harm in knowing, would there? I mean, when would it be a good time for me to stop around the place and take a look at the great work you've done?
So it's so simple.
But like, I don't know whether that place that I own, I don't know whether it's really worth 2.4 or 3.1. Like
Yeah.
that's the delta that it could be. And I know the industry. But there's so much subjectivity around pricing, right? And you know roughly what your house is worth, Ryan? Roughly.
Roughly.
But there's a spread that you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, like when you get for real, there's what's it worth? What would a lender lend on it? And then what might somebody pay for it? And if you're being honest, the subjectivity about things you put in because you love them and the value that has to a third party buyer, there's a discretionary input there as well, right? It's like my Degorne wallpaper is something that I love that other people might look at and go, well, there's the first job that I need to spend money on. It's taking that out.
The key for everyone listening is, and once again, this is also to the young team that's listening as well, is know this framework, internalize this framework. You see how confident and comfortable Phil is. It doesn't matter the scenario. Once you have the framework internalized, you will have great conversations. Not every conversation is going to lead to an appointment today or a closing tomorrow, but you will start to have a much deeper connection with your database. You will, when one of the things that I love what you said is if you were to ask every contact in your database who's their agent of choice or who's their preferred agent or who's their agent, how many of them would actually say you versus we say, oh, those are our prospects, those are our
Yeah.
clients, those are our customers. And how do we actually start providing them so much value and having these conversations over time? You said second, third, fourth conversation. How do we have so many conversations with them where that is where they go? As soon as we say, who's your agent? It's like, oh, Ryan's been communicating with me for the last 3 years. And every time I talk to him, he's providing me something of value. He's asking great questions. He understands what's our true motivation, what our pain points are. They're going to ultimately work with you when the time comes,
Yeah. And even a reframe there on pain points. We're not looking for pain points. We're not looking to dig deeper. We're not like looking to probe. We're trying to find useful truth. That's the purpose of these conversations. We want to find what useful truth is existing in the world of that person so I can know what help looks like. Brian asked here on the chat, what do you do if they say no after you ask, would it help if? Well, what you did is you offered something that you believed might be helpful that they decided was not helpful. You didn't know what help looked like. That's the
right?
puzzle. So how do you back up from there? Well, what you do is you say, where's my little pen? You say, I get it. That might not be the right thing for you at this moment in time. Right? There's a mutually agreeable fact. But are you still intrigued in understanding what actions you could take that would add value rather than subtract value from your home? Yeah. Okay. Well, where do you go for information right now? Past, right? And who do you ask questions of when something enters into your mind? And could it be possible that at some point in time in the months, years ahead, that you might be looking for a trusted resource in real estate that might need to move quickly, that understands some of your backstory? So would it help if we stayed in touch and that you had my cell phone number in your phone, that should an opportunity would present itself, that you knew that you could reach out? And when would be a good time for us to reconnect on a timeline that didn't have you pressured? And we could kick this can down the road for a year. Like, oh, like nothing this year, Phil. Okay. I get it. You're not in a rush, but you are potentially still looking to move at some point in time in the future. Yeah. So what we've done is we've chatted a little bit about the kind of services we can provide. You've confirmed that you're not currently in a situation where you're looking to be able to do anything, but you would like to stay in touch. So would it help if I put it on the schedule for maybe, March, April of next year to find out what's changed in your world? And when would be a good time of day for me to be able to reach out on the phone that doesn't cost you too much inconvenience? And everyone in the chat's looking for the exceptions. Folks, try and break this. You can't, you won't. And like, I'm looking here in the chat is like, how can this framework apply to text or email conversation? It's a conversation. Like I could start a text today with Ryan, and I could be like, hey, Ryan, there's an opening. He'd be like, yo, what's up? I'd be like, I know we got the webinar later on today. Are you as ready as you could be? That's opening fair question. Hey, reminder, what did we do last time? Past. And what have you got in your plan for today? There's present, future. Oh, and what else are we hoping to activate for next? So would it help if I did blank, blank, and blank? Okay. And when would be a good time for us to jump on beforehand to make sure that we're ready for the conversation? It's the freaking same. Does it sound the same? No. But just like every song you listen to on your Spotify playlist, it's the same. The lyrics are different, but the melody is the same.
And I think that I think on the next session, one of the things that I think it's really important that you're not going to have this type of framework over an email. Like an email is one-sided, right? And I'm not saying like you can't open with it, but next webinar, we can break down a couple of ways to get people to engage through an email. But you just got to remember, like the easiest way to actually have these be what I would consider as beneficial is actually having a conversation, a phone call, a live conversation with a prospect, right? All of a sudden, you lose the emotional components when you're through texting, SMS, naturally, right? Like it's a lot harder to create the engagement, to understand the emotional side of things. So it's like ideally, we're getting essentially on a call with this prospect, like Phil said, 8 a day, 10 a day, whatever it may be. Do this 10 times a day. Make a commitment to that. It'll change your business. It'll change your career.
I'm going to give a visual real quick. So
So the anticipation right now. What if Phil just never comes back? What if he just walked away?
How easy is this to build? It's Lego.
Oh, that's sweet.
Now, ironically, this was sent to me by Maersk after I did some consulting and speaking work for them. And as a logistics company, it took them 3 months to get it to me when I spoke for them in Barcelona. But that's a different sort of joke of a story. Is the logistics company couldn't get it to me. But to build this giant freaking Lego set, if all of these components and all of these bricks were just thrown in a pile and the job was build this, how many of you could do it? The answer is probably none of us. But what needed to happen is it needed to be broken into a series of micro steps that says you open this bag and then you do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6. You open this bag and you do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We are asking our buyers and sellers to make decisions that are this big. And what we're trying to be able to do is we're trying to do it in one move. I'm wondering why it's hard. I'm wondering why we sound like everybody else. If we can get them to open the first bag and then do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then say, now we're here, what's the next bag? And now we're here, what's the next bag? Every single person on your database right now is a prospect that is almost certainly going to make a housing transaction, not in the next 30, 60, 90 days, but in the next 30, 60, 90 months. If you can stay in that conversation and deliver an appreciating value on repeat, they will be going nowhere, and you'll build things that are this big. But instead, you're showing up trying to do a checkers move in a game that requires you to have chess skills and wondering why you're being seen as self-serving. See, when Will here in the chat says, how open would you be to exploring some smart ways of leveraging that equity to invest? I can't leverage the equity to invest because I don't have it. It's phantom cash. What we'd say is, well, look, if you could release some of that equity, like would there be any potential that maybe perhaps that you'd consider growing a slightly bigger portfolio while still keeping your existing home? Well, what would that look like? But there are some smart ways of leveraging that equity to invest, but like it just depends on each individual's goals and long-term circumstances and a lot of other variables. I mean, for real, how much longer do you see yourself staying in this home? Well, we're going to be here a decade. Well, you got a ton of money in that house right now. But the best right now is just not costing you 2.5%. If you could pull it out and leverage it and maybe start to build a portfolio, is that like a crazy idea, or like is that something that would be worthy of a conversation? But what we're trying to do is we're trying to move in one move when what we should be moving is in 6, 7, or 8.
What I think is so important is, and I'm going to pull this up really quickly, we have some incredible questions in the comments. Next webinar, let me get us to right here. Number 3, the third of the trilogy, October 28th, 1 p.m. We're going to break down all of these questions. Someone asked a question about what do you do when someone just says, I didn't click on anything, or we're going to break down all these different scenarios. How often do you call them? So what we're going to do is make sure you join us on webinar number 3. It's going to be kind of like almost like an Ask Me Anything, where it's like we're just going to spend the entire time working through these different scenarios. You guys are going to get a ton of value out of it. Remember to post on social. Let's make sure we get these cards circulated. They are such a game changer. I can't tell you how much the young team and other, fellow and so many of our top teams use them and get a ton of value out of them. Make sure to use hashtag fellow, tag Phil, etc. And then lastly, one of the things that so many people love about Fellow is it creates the engagement to have these conversations. If you don't want to go through your database cold and just start randomly calling people, well, what Fellow does is automate engagement that ultimately creates signals and hand raisers for you to actually reach out to them so you can have that fact-based part of the questioning of saying, I see that you did just request your home value, or I did see that you just clicked on or opened an email, etc. So if you want to check out Fellow, we've got some incredible opportunities for you guys. I can't thank you enough, Phil. You see it in the comments. I know a lot of you guys are on host and panelists, so maybe you guys can't see all the comments, but this is literally just like the value that you provide is so incredible to our industry. And you mentioned reframing many times. I think we as an industry need to reprogramming. We need reframing on how we actually approach consumer and prospect and customer engagement. And you've done such an incredible job showing us where what the foundation of these conversations should be. And so I am super excited for us for the third one to actually start breaking down these scenarios. I'm hoping to see everyone there. Anything else to take us away with?
Couple of people in the chat just asking where do they get the role play cards. I know that some people aren't leaving things to chance of them winning. Is easiest way to grab the link is come follow me on Instagram. Shoot me a DM, so that's a direct message in my Instagram that says the word role play, which is ROLEPLAY. I say that because there are lots of different ways that people choose to spell this word. And you'll get a link back instantly. So you can grab that back from there. So come follow me, send a DM.
It also, if you're a broker in New York City, uh, Phil has a second place right now. And so it's also send him a DM asking with some OFQ framework about what his plans are with his second home, right? If you guys are great students of Phil, let's make sure we're providing him some value. All right. Appreciate you guys, Phil. You're the man. This is just, I can't tell you how beneficial they are. Looking forward to the next one. We'll see you guys on the 28th for session number 3.
Thanks, dude. See you guys soon.
See you guys.
Bye bye.